When you're sitting across from an attorney at the worst moment of your life, a divorce, a criminal charge, an accident, you're trusting someone you barely know. Today's episode is about who that person actually is, what it took them to earn that seat, and why it matters to you. This is Texas Law Unlocked, giving you clear insight into Texas law so you can move forward with confidence. My name is Brett Pritchard. I'm an attorney in Texas. I've been practicing law for 27 years, mainly family law and domestic issues type law, criminal law, CPS, those type of things, really all around Texas, but my primary focus has been in Central Texas.
And my name is Jeff Linick. I'm an associate attorney with the law office of Brett Pritchard. I've been practicing family law and criminal defense for the last 16 years, starting out in the South Texas area, but currently in the Central Texas area. And I've probably practiced throughout most of the state at one point or another. And we're joined today by a special guest, our first special guest for Texas Law Unlocked.
My name is Kate Zurinczak. I am a second-year law student at BYU Law in Utah. And I got into law school in a bit of an unorthodox way. I wanted to be in the Foreign Service initially, and due to the hiring situation that was going on at the time I was preparing to take the Foreign Service exam, I decided I needed to cultivate some backup plans, and law school was that plan. And when I got in, I wasn't sure if I was going to take it, but I did, and I am very grateful that I made that decision.
Oh, good. Thank you, Kate. Quick note before we get started. Everything on this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Texas Law Unlocked is brought to you by the law office of Brett H. Pritchard. Well, I'm glad you told us that, Kate. I know that a lot of people get into law school. That's not their first plan. I remember when my daughter got into law school, she wanted to be an accountant. And
it's different.
She already had her CPA and she had a master's of accounting. And somehow I convinced her to go to law school. She got into law school, loved it, never looked at accounting again. So that's kind of how they got there.
My plan was to go into education. My mom was a teacher for 30 years. And so I did get a taste of it because waiting for my bar exam results, I did do some substitute teaching. So in retrospect, I'm glad I definitely made the right choice going into law.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Kate, we wanted to bring you on, one, because you've been an intern with us this summer, and also because you're a woman practicing law, and we want to get that perspective, but also being a young lawyer, not even a lawyer, starting out in the practice. So I kind of, when I was formulating the idea, I thought so often when people think about lawyers, they think about what they see on TV. You know, Jeff, I think of LA Law and all the old, I remember thinking, boy, when I become a lawyer, I'm going to be driving a red Ferrari. Yep. Life will be easy. You see these attorneys, they were always suave, and courtroom, they'd yell at judges and they'd yell at prosecutors and they'd look like heroes for their clients. And I remember thinking, man, that's what I want to be. That's how practicing law is. Do you remember any of that?
I do. Today, everyone watches Suits, but I grew up in the LA Law generation, and I think one of the attorneys drove a Bentley, the other one drove a Jaguar, and the episode would just be them rolling up to the courthouse, get out of their car with a woman on their arm, and then saunter in and make some charismatic argument to a jury and then walk on out right off into the sunset. That's pretty much what the practice of law looked like. So certainly appealing from that standpoint.
Yeah. Kate, what about you? What do you remember about what you thought a lawyer was? Let's be good hearing from a younger.
Well, I think my opinion was actually pretty similar to Jeff's. I just kind of saw lawyers as the upper crust of society. They were people who lived in a world different from our own. And getting into it for myself, I found that we're just as human as anyone else. Everyone who I've worked with has flaws, and they're just real people, and they're fun to talk to.
All right. So,
and most lawyers have enormous student loan debt too. So
even
if they are driving a nice car, they're up to their eyeballs in debt usually.
You know, so then we find out when we start the practice that lawyers, like Kate just said, just regular people, I think the better lawyers, the lawyers that we try to associate ourselves with, are lawyers that really try to help people, that try to understand their problems, they listen, they try to get into it. So I think the misconception or what we saw may be glamorized by Hollywood. The other thing I realized is that being a lawyer, while it's been very fulfilling for me and I love it, it's not a very glamorous job most often. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not.
Right. And funnily enough, what we do is probably the closest to what you see on TV because we're litigators. And so that's 99% of any kind of courtroom drama is what you see. So we have had cases where we've had photos in a divorce case of somebody in a compromising position or a surprise witness in a criminal defense case. But there's a lot that isn't shown on TV that goes into the practice of law. And that's the part that really makes it a professional career rather than something that's just glamorous.
You use the word litigator, Jeff. What is that?
Litigator is somebody that has a case where there is another side and we can't come to an agreement. So you've got to go into a courtroom and fight it out and have the matter ultimately decided by a judge or jury.
Yeah. Kate, you've had some experience the last 2 weeks seeing litigation in action, right?
Yes, I have. 2 jury trials.
All right. Tell me about that. What do you mean? What jury trials? What happened?
Well, the very first one was an accidental death from a car accident. So basically, we were trying to help an individual who caused a death on a roadway to avoid a higher sentence than he needed to get. And the second one was a murder trial for someone who committed a murder as part of gang violence.
Now, that you were contracted or contacted to help another law firm. Is that right? We weren't the lead counsel on that.
Yes, that is true.
We weren't the trial attorneys. We were there as more of an assisting role. Is that right?
Exactly. We were helping someone who had been appointed by the courts to defend those individuals.
All right. Very good. What did you notice about in your last 2 weeks the way court is versus what you saw on TV?
I think the biggest thing is on TV, court's very showy. The lawyer standing up, waving his arms around, trying to get everyone's attention, raising his voice, maybe yelling a little bit. You don't see that as much in the court as I would have expected. I mean, there is a certain amount of theatrics that go into playing before a jury, but generally, it's just making the best argument that you can for the person that you're defending or the person that you're trying to prosecute. And it just comes down to strategy at that point. It's very much not large revelations that happen in the middle of a testimony.
Sure. Jeff, I remember the first time I sat through my very first jury trial. Probably not a good story to share, but very first jury trial. Been practicing law for 8 days. World's worst case. I get assigned by the senior partner at the firm I work for to try this dumb personal injury case. But I took that case and thought it was the greatest case in the world and was going to try it. And I remember the morning of the jury trial, I stand up and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be like these guys on LA Law. Right? This is what's going to happen. I wake up, get up early, ready to go. I'm prepared. I've got the facts down cold. I have all my arguments ready. Of course, brand new lawyer. I've got everything scripted out. I've reviewed, rehearsed that script. I've talked in front of the mirror. I am ready to go.
See where this is going?
I get up to eat my breakfast that morning. My wife, Cindy, makes breakfast. I'm sitting down with the kids eating. I no sooner get that breakfast in than I got to run out the back door and vomit all over the backyard. I was so nervous. And then I didn't eat the rest of the trial, and I'm sure I did terrible. I'd survived a directed verdict. So
there you go.
I don't know if I survived because the case was that good and I had done a great job,
or the judge felt sorry for you.
Or if it was the judge who swore me in, and he thought, well, I just swore him in a week ago. I don't want it. I don't
take the wind out of his sails.
I don't want it to be bad
right
now.
As he starts. Yeah.
He did tell me later that I asked him, do you remember? He goes, I remember your first jury trial. He goes, I don't remember what it's about. I said, I just don't know how I survived a directed verdict. He goes, you didn't survive a directed verdict. He goes, I should have shut that trial down, but I needed you to try that case so that you knew what was going on. I need you to do the whole case. I thought that was interesting, a perspective from a judge where he wanted an attorney to be trained as well. I was going to be in front of him.
Sure.
And so that's what he thought was expected. Okay, well let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about law school.
Okay.
You're in high school. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at South Anchorage High School in Alaska.
All right, and so then you go to college, and you ended up getting into college. So your career starts going to college, right?
Yes, it really does. That's where you start setting up the path that you're going to take for the rest of your life.
Okay, where'd you go?
I went to BYU.
All right, Brigham Young University.
Yes, sir.
In Provo, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. And what'd you major? And well, when you start, tell me about that. How do you decide what you want to go into? What do you do?
Well, for me, I consulted with people who I trusted, who knew me well and knew what kind of markets would be helpful. Actually, when I started, I went into cybersecurity. I thought I'd be a penetration tester, like trying to break into systems and buildings. And I learned really quickly that hunching over a desk at a computer all day was not what I wanted to do with my life. And so I switched tracks and I went into political science with an emphasis in international strategy and diplomacy.
I have a degree in political science from BYU. That's interesting.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people that have a law degree usually have undergrad in political science. It's pretty common.
In
Of
English.
course, of course, there's also a lot of people with law degrees that go into politics too, as well.
That's true. All right. So you get into school, you have to do well to get to law school. I've always said that the smartest people in the world that I've ever met was when I was in law school. I always felt like I was the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah, it is an impressive group of people that you're around.
Right. So you did well in law, you did well in college, and you end up with a bachelor's degree, and then you have to decide to go to law school. Did you just apply to one school, or what'd you do?
I applied to several. I was kind of late because I decided almost on a whim to do that as a backup plan last minute. And so I was applying on the days of most of the deadlines. So I had to cast a very large net since most of the schools had already sent out all of their acceptances by the time I applied.
All right. Well, you got into BYU.
I did, yes.
How did you get acceptance from other schools?
I did.
How did you choose which school you wanted to go to?
I would have to say that was mostly a pragmatic decision. I received a full tuition scholarship to BYU, and so that was what I wanted to do because as we've talked about, lawyers usually come out with a lot of student debt, and if I can avoid that, that's what I want to do.
Well, that's why I chose where I went to school. They were going to pay for it, so I thought, well, if they're going to pay for it, I might as well go.
Me too.
Well, you get into school, and did you read the book 1L before you got to law school?
I did not. I didn't do any preparation.
You didn't? Jeff, did you?
Really.
I didn't read that book, but I'd heard enough people that had to give me some heads up.
I actually read that book. I scared the bejeebies out of me. I thought, what in the world am I getting into? And then I found law school wasn't anything like that.
Right.
So tell me about your experience in law school. You hear about things like the Socratic method and the workload that you have to do and
the reading that you have to do.
Yeah, all the reading. Tell me about that.
Law school is an entirely different lifestyle change. When I was going in, people would tell me how the first year would be hell and that you wouldn't have a life, and I didn't believe them. That is largely true. If you can make time to do things for yourself, but generally you are working day in, day out. It's a full-time job and then some. I would say we spend about 15 hours a week in the classroom and about another 50 to 60 outside of the classroom, preparing, doing assignments, so such and so forth. But something that I actually really enjoy is the Socratic method. So basically what the Socratic method is an instructor, a professor will call on students to answer questions throughout, just point at them, put them in the hot seat. They don't get to raise their hand. They don't get to know what's coming up. And they essentially have the students teach the class for them based on the preparation that they did beforehand.
It's a great way of teaching. You know, the thing that I remember about the Socratic method, at least in our school, is you'd be called on, you'd have to stand up.
Right.
And then you were it the rest of the day. And it didn't matter, Kate, how much you were prepared, because you might think you knew it, and then they would change a fact. So then, because they were making you think on your feet.
Yes.
Well, years later, I still, when I am instructing a class, if I get called to teach some sort of class, I end up doing the same thing. Right. I sort of still teach by the Socratic method. It's a great way to do it.
I think from a pedagogical standpoint, you really can only learn so much by just sitting back and trying to absorb. To me, to really learn the law is something you have to grapple with and wrestle with and get it somewhat under control. And it really relates a lot to the practice, because you might think you have a handle on everything. You might think you have an ironclad argument, but that only lasts until you come up against opposing counsel that has a contrary argument and case law to back them up and can distinguish your cases. And so that's when the rubber hits the road, is when you find out whether you know it or not.
And you have to be able to pivot.
Exactly.
In a minute.
Yep.
And then it's not just what the current case law is. Do you understand the theory behind the case, so that when they do throw a counter case at you,
right,
you know the theory down well enough to be able to say, well, Judge, here's why that's wrong.
Right.
Or here's why I'm more right. So those are the things. Well, and that's what kind of the Socratic method does, has you do it. My first day of law school, I don't know if they still do this, and I'm interested. We go to our orientation, and then after orientation, the the professors who are doing the orientation say, okay, you go back to the law school and you're going to find this reading list. You guys don't have reading lists anymore because you didn't have to use books. We actually had books. Do you use books still?
Of course we use
I didn't know if you used books or everything was on the
still
computer.
exist.
They exist, but I didn't know if you used them on the computer or not. But anyway,
You can sometimes.
they said you'll go and you'll get your textbooks and then you need to be ready for your first day, which is tomorrow. And so you had 3 or 4 classes. I think you had 3 classes the first day. Well, each class I went in, we're getting this at 4:00. We have to be ready the next day. They want 300 pages read in each class.
Yep.
That is accurate.
For that first day.
That has not changed at all.
And I remember getting there going,
Yeah, you think that's for the semester. No, it's for day one.
I'm thinking, I've got to read 1,000 pages. 1,000 pages. You're looking at 3 inches of paper. And this isn't single-spaced with pictures.
Right.
I mean, this isn't double-spaced with pictures.
Dense.
This is dense.
Legal
very,
writing.
Very boring prose.
Yep.
And it's case after case after case. How did you do it?
Well, you just kind of have to do it. I think that's the issue. Like, they throw you into the deep end and you adapt. In my case, I stayed up until about midnight that night before. Also, we weren't allowed to take notes using computers in some of my classes, so I just had my little binder and I would just write down everything that I thought was important and show up and hope for the best.
Oh, hello, hand cramps.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes,
Well,
carpal tunnel.
you could probably get those little, now you could cheat, those little recording devices.
The pocket device.
Those little recording devices the size of a business card. You didn't have any of that. But I recall the first time I sat there and read all that stuff, and I think I got done about 10 or 11. I'm ready for bed, and my wife wants to ask me questions. And I think it was the first time my brain ached. I thought, I can't even think to talk. But what I learned is that was every day.
Right.
And after a while, your mind got used to that type of workload.
Yeah.
And then by the end of law school, you'd look and go, what's the assignments tomorrow? And you go, oh, well, there's only 900 pages. That's a good day.
Right.
Because you kind of learned how to get through the night. You kind of learned when you started reading cases that what was important in the case,
Right.
and you could skim a lot of the cases. And
Right. There's a lot of dicta and stuff that's not relevant to what you're trying to learn. So you learn to find the important parts.
That's actually an obstacle I've run into during the summer for the internship is I am so used to having my evenings consumed by reading that when I get home and I only have maybe an hour of work to do when I get home, I have no idea what to do for the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's weird. After I used to love to read. I got to law school and I never read for fun after that until probably about 5 years ago when I finally picked up a book again and could read for fun.
Right.
I've not been able to do it.
Have to get past the trauma of books.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a tough situation. So, now you've finished your first year, and after your first year, you start interviewing with all these different law firms.
Actually, it's a bit different now.
Okay.
We started interviewing within our first 6 weeks.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Pushing that
During
way
the
back.
1L year. Yeah.
Oh, we got a new assignment for our interns when I get back to BYU. Go talk to them, please. Get me on their interviewing list. How do you choose what law firm you want to go to? I'm sure you had opportunities besides our law firm.
I had a few, but honestly, it came down to what did I think was going to get me the most relevant experience. And there's a lot of big law firms out there that are willing to give incredible monetary offers to law students to lock them in, make sure that they don't look anywhere else. But when you go to those places, you're pushing papers. You're just doing whatever menial tasks are assigned to you. And so when you came to my firm and you told me that I would be in a courtroom, I'd have a chance to do real meaningful legal work that wasn't just busy work or made up cases, I wanted to get my boots on the ground, and that made the decision really easy.
Well, what's your internship been like? I'm curious. How's that been?
It's been a very eye-opening experience. I think I went from this abstract impression of the law and what it is into really the real world. And I've been able to interact with clients, which is something that a lot of people at large law firms don't do for like the first 5 years.
Yeah.
I've had the chance to lead consultations. I've been in a courtroom. I've helped with trial strategy. I've helped prepare cross-examination questions. And I've really just learned how the law actually works in practice, which is something that law school really doesn't teach you.
I agree with that.
Right.
I think it takes 5 years to learn how to practice. You get the terms, you know the terminology, you'll know what I remember when I first got out of law school, I knew I'd heard the term of a temporary restraining order, but I didn't really know how it worked in real life. Does that make sense?
Right. Or even just talking to your client, learning how to advise them.
Yeah.
Actually getting your client under control is a big part of the practice of law, and managing client expectations. So you don't wind up getting complaints, or they have a realistic view of what the outcome of the case is going to look like, or they can make meaningful decisions in changing the outcome of their case.
Yeah, it's a whole nother set of skills, and you learn that, Kate, when you start as a lawyer, you'll come on, you're raw. I think back to my first 5 years of practice. I don't know how I wasn't disbarred some of the things I probably did.
Right.
Things to look forward to.
but you get through it, and your clients are counting on you. And I've always had I've always felt like if I'm doing my best to help somebody, then things are going to work out. I just want to do the right thing for people and try to lead them in the right way, and it usually works out.
Well, to me, that's kind of one of the big differences with the practice of law compared to if you'd gone into cybersecurity, for example, is you're primarily dealing with people. You're dealing with the law, but you're also dealing with people, and whether that's your own client or counsel on the other side or opposing party on the other side, there's a lot of interpersonal skills that are required to be a lawyer. And it's something that takes, you don't learn it in law school. It's something that takes time to master.
Yeah. Especially the things you said, a lot of times our clients, when you said you have to get them under control, what you're saying there is a lot of times our clients are in some of the worst times of their life,
right?
And they're not helping themselves because they keep making poor decisions.
Right.
Yep.
They're making emotionally charged decisions that turn out to be very poor decisions, things they don't do in real life.
Right.
I was talking to a psychologist friend of mine one time who does a lot of recommendations for the court on child custody, and he says, I think many times a lot of clients, when they're going through these custody cases, they go temporarily insane. He goes, they do things that they would ordinarily never do. Jeff, I've represented doctors. I've represented spouse doctors who one of them went in to the husband's closet, who had to work, and took a knife and cut all his clothes. And in return, he took all her clothes and started them on fire in the backyard. Yep. These are doctors.
Yep.
This isn't they would never do that.
Right.
And I bet they look back going, what was I thinking? Well, but in the minute, they're so emotionally charged, and there's so much emotion pent up in them that this is how they behave sometimes.
Absolutely. And we've represented somebody, obviously we can't disclose who it is or anything about it, but person is very, very prominent position, career military person. And there was a point we thought that we might need to get this person committed to an institution. He started losing his mind in the middle of a family law case.
Yeah, it happens. And I think that's one thing that maybe, Kate, you're learning is that at a law firm, especially the one our size, where we have a lot of clients, we have a lot of work we're doing, right? And so we're always helping people, always moving another case. When we're done with this case, we go to the next case. And we may spend 20 minutes on a case and then go spend another 20 somewhere else. But for our clients, this is their only case. They think about it when they get up in the morning. They think about it when they're getting ready to go to work. They think about it at work, during meals, when they go to bed. It's getting them a pit in their stomach. They can't sleep. And so they are always, whatever case it is on the forefront of their mind. And where that, I think, becomes a problem for an attorney, and that we have to really be understanding of our clients, is that this is so important to them, and they have to understand that it's important to us too. However, there's only so much we can do in a case, and then we're just waiting for the other side to respond.
That's part of it. The other part of it too, going back to the difference of what you see on TV, is clients don't have unlimited resources. They don't have unlimited money, and everything we do obviously costs money. And so we can't necessarily have 10 expert witnesses lined up for every case.
And the other thing too is a TV show's done in an hour.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Somebody commercial.
You might have a short case is going to take you 6 months.
Right. Yep.
And so there's no easy fix. Well, Kate, how has been, I kind of want to pivot a little bit. How has it been working in an industry where there seems to be, I guess it's not true because in law school, it seems to be 50-50 with women and men. But as I get in the practice, I see more women coming along, but it's still a very heavily male industry, it seems to me. How does that work with you? What have you noticed? Have you noticed anything in that regard?
Well, as far as law school, you're right. It's about a 50-50 split. I haven't experienced really any sort of discrimination at all in my law school experience. Most of it actually comes from the outside, people who don't know very much about being a lawyer, especially coming from a very religious community. When I talk to someone about going into law school, actually this happened very recently, like last week, someone asked if I just wanted to be a paralegal so I could still stay home with my kids.
Oh, wow.
Which was an interesting thing to ask someone. But honestly, I think that most of the stigma is on the opposite side, where they're very supportive of me becoming a lawyer, but they automatically assume that means that I don't have any other goals for my life. And I think that that's been something interesting to look at. Another interesting thing is also the way that I have to present myself is different from the way that a man potentially might be able to present himself. I participated in a trial advocacy competition, and it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great. But something that was really interesting to me is during the early parts of my mentorship, where we were being trained on how to do this, my mentor told me that as a woman, I couldn't use my characteristic assertiveness and boldness in the courtroom because it would make me come across as standoffish and it would alienate me from a judge, whereas a man can do that. I have to be sweet. I have to be kind. Otherwise, I'm going to be perceived the wrong way.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
I can, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's something that's never even crossed my mind. And it is interesting that, it's even out now in the mix of people going to law school, but you just sort of look around at the membership of the Bar Association where we're at. We still have the first 2 female attorneys in this county that are getting close to retirement, but that just shows you don't have to go back that far, and it was almost 100% male dominated.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, that's interesting you say that, Kate. One thing I want to say, and I'll get back to that, and I don't know if this is a function of you being a woman where everybody's real supportive of you in law school. I remember this is very distinctly. When I was a law student, everybody would run to, "Oh, you're a law student. That's great. That's great. That's wonderful." I become a lawyer. "Oh, you're a lawyer."
Yeah,
one of the sharks.
somewhere below used car salesman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm right there with used car salesmen and whoever else is down, door-to-door salespeople, maybe. Well, so you've been at the law firm. Now, our law firm has we have a pretty good mix of every male, female, every color, race. I think we've got quite a few. We have a broad spectrum, an array of attorneys. Have you noticed anything in your internship, whether at the firm or in the courtroom, that you think, well, that's interesting, and maybe that's happening because I'm a woman?
Honestly, not so much. I feel like I'm generally treated with a lot of respect, and I haven't really experienced anything of that nature.
Good. You'd let me know if you felt it in my firm.
I will. No, It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that better not happen. That would not fit who we are.
Yeah, one of the things that actually kind of helps a little bit is, especially with our firm having such a diverse cast of attorneys, is sometimes the optics do matter. So we have criminal cases that we have to take to a jury trial, and sometimes there's allegations of domestic violence. Sometimes there's allegations of something being racially motivated, and if it's a domestic violence allegation, having all men on the side of a male defendant isn't always necessarily the best look. So sometimes being a woman, I think, can actually give you a little bit of an advantage in that situation.
It's well known. I went to a criminal CLE one time, and we were talking about sexual assault cases. It's well known that when you're having to cross-examine a female victim or a child victim, male or female, it should always be a woman who does the cross-examination.
Right.
Maybe that goes back to what you're saying, Kate. They think you're sweet. Even though we know you're tenacious and you're a bulldog, you come off looking so sweet. Maybe that's what they're saying in front of a jury.
You can beat up on a witness without looking like you're beating up on him.
I guess that's what they're saying. There is some studies that say that's you should never be a male asking those type of questions. Which leads me to that, Jeff. You and I attend a lot of different trainings. Does our education ever stop?
Nope. We got to do at least 15 hours every year just to keep up our license.
But I'm talking more than just the CLE.
Sure.
I find I'm reading law all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm always trying to be better, trying to hone my skills. What can I do to be a better litigator? What can I do to train my lawyers to be better in the courtroom?
Well, I myself tried to pop in on the trial that our colleague was conducting and the interns were helping out at. He's an excellent trial attorney, and sometimes when I've popped in and seen him either doing jury selection or making closing arguments to jurors, I wish I had my notepad with me and jot down a couple of the things he's saying because I could use those myself. I always say steal from the best is my philosophy.
Well, yeah, you and I were talking about one of his voir dires, which is when they're talking to the jury, it sounds really good. But I'm just talking generally. I don't think any attorney should ever quit learning. The practice of law it's a practice.
You're right.
And I truly do believe that the better attorneys take that practice and they turn it into an art. And that only comes through continual study, continual practice. And the attorneys that are willing to put that time and effort in, you know what I'm talking about. They're just a cut above.
Right. No, I agree. It's a career, and it's the kind of career that is all encompassing, and you really do have to love it. To me, if you're just someone in it for the money, it's going to show, because if you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to keep up with your skills. You're not going to continually learn and develop, because nobody knows the law entirely. There's always something new you can learn.
So, Kate, every law student, there is a phenomenon in law school. Law students have lawyers. They meet all sorts of lawyers that come into law school all the time. And there is a kind of a hero worship for lawyers when you first meet lawyers in law school. You see it today. Jeff, you saw it when you went and did on-campus interviews. I saw it with Quincy when we did on-campus interviews. We're there. People think, oh my gosh, they're actually lawyers. Your internship. You've now dealt at our firm with 15 lawyers. You've dealt with other lawyers now in the community. How has that perception changed, and how have you grown in that perception?
I think the biggest thing about my perception changing is you're right. You do perceive those people as legends, as heroes, as almost something unattainable. And from observing lawyers in action, I can see myself doing those things. It feels less far away, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not going to say I respect anybody less. If anything, like seeing them in practice, I respect them more for the amount of emotional labor that they put into making this happen. But I feel like they're just people who have chosen to dedicate their lives to doing something that's really important and helps a lot of people's lives. And I think that's something that if anyone wants to put their mind into doing it, they can. And I don't think that anyone who is just working to do their best necessarily needs to be worshipped. What's
one thing you've learned here at our firm that you can think of that you had not learned in law school? That put you on the spot, didn't it?
No, I think that I learned something actually. I'm just trying to figure out how to say it with tact. I think I learned that the way that we approach our cases and our strategy is different from what I thought. I thought that the pursuit of law was the pursuit of justice, plain and simple, that our judges were in their seats because they wanted the correct and right outcomes for whoever was before them. And to a certain extent, that is true. But there's a lot more that goes into formulating a strategy than just what's the right thing. You have to think about the judge, what their motivations are, what arguments are persuasive to them, and that affects a lot of the things that we do.
Yeah, it is. I remember you guys looking shocked the first time I said, what is the main job of a district judge in Texas?
To get reelected.
Nobody gets it right because the job is to get reelected.
Right. And so you always have to remember that. if their main job is to get reelected and that is the main motivation, now every judge watching this is going to say that's not true. And I would tell them to call me on the phone and I'll tell them, okay, let's go through some things.
Right.
Their main job is to get reelected. They don't want to be on the news. They want to stay below the radar. And so that is the main motivation an attorney has to look at. That actually goes into the art of what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. When I finally learned that, when I finally stepped back and said, that's their job, it changed the way I practice. It changes the way you present evidence, changed the way I advise clients. What kind of case makes you feel like this is the work you're meant to do?
We actually had a case, someone who came in recently that we haven't actually fully started on their case yet, but it was someone who wanted to facilitate an adoption. And I come from an adoptive household. Both my sister and I were adopted, and I have seen how adoption has changed my life and the life of other people that I know. And it really comes down to, I think, what one of the core values is for our office, and that is moving families forward. And seeing someone be able to overcome some of the most difficult situations in their life and be able to move forward and to be able to strive to overcome a lot of difficulties, we can help them do that. And we help them to get out of the deepest ruts that their lives are in. And I think that seeing that kind of thing firsthand has made me think this is something that I could really do.
You know, people don't realize that is really our core purpose, Jeff, is that in our firm, we want to move families forward. We want to get them out of their holding pattern, whether it's a family law case, whether it's adoption or a divorce or families in a criminal case. What can we do to move them forward? And that takes dedication, and it takes a real desire to help people. I got into law school, Jeff, because as you know, I went with my grandmother when I was really a young guy, and she was facing a domestic issue. She was stuck in a rut, if you will, a legal rut. And maybe her life's on hold at the time because I didn't know all the issues and probably still don't. I just remember that something was causing her unhappiness in her life or discomfort in her life, and she needed to go see an attorney, and she wanted to know if I'd go with her. And I remember distinctly asking her, well, what's a lawyer? Oh, they're someone that helps people. They're going to help me get through this problem I have. And I was touched in my heart, convicted in the soul, whatever you want to call it at that point, saying, that's what I want to do. I was 9. Jeff, what made you want to get into the practice of law?
Well, my story is a little bit interesting. So I had a grandfather actually who was had an insurance practice. He actually worked for an insurance company. Now, this is many, many, many years ago. We're going back to the 50s and 60s. And at one point, and this was just kind of the policy of the time of how insurance companies worked, they would not write certain property and casualty policies for African Americans and for certain zip codes if you lived in a certain area. And he kind of disagreed with them about that and wound up quitting and walking out on them and started his own insurance company. And they wound up the insurance company he left wound up legally hounding him for years over this non-compete clause that he had signed, which didn't prohibit him from doing what he was doing, but they were trying to use that to retaliate and go after him. And he had a years-long legal battle that he fought with them and ultimately prevailed, actually sued them and got a significant judgment against them. And when he did it, he actually, amazingly, this kind of shows my grandfather. He represented himself. He wasn't a lawyer, but he used to go to the law library at the courthouse all the time and learn how to do everything. And I was just amazed that somebody would, had that ability and could do that, and what you could do if you knew the law, and how he was able to help himself and his family. And I figured, well, if I can go to law school and get a law license and learn to do this even better, how much I could help other people. So that was my motivation.
So again, that the same helping people and then becoming better as we did it. I haven't always been successful. I recall I had a case one time when I knew the right thing to do and I did it, and I was representing. We get right up to the brink of trial, and we're going to go to a jury trial, and I'm ready for the jury. And I remember as I'm getting ready, the opposing attorney came up to me, and this opposing attorney starts giving me all the reasons we shouldn't go to a jury trial. And I sat, I was young, I'm maybe 2 or 3 years out of law school. And I knew I'd win this trial. I represented the mother. I knew I had the case won. And I allowed this attorney who'd been practicing for quite some time, who I've had many jury trials with since. I allowed this attorney to convince me that it wasn't in my client's best interest to go to a jury. And I didn't go to a jury. And I went in front of the same judge who had already granted temporary orders against my client, thinking somehow I was going to change that judge's mind. And I didn't, and we didn't prevail. That's always been a real heartache for me, because I realized I could have done better. And I've never allowed myself since then to not do my best to help somebody. And when I say do my best, do what I believe's the best, not what somebody else is. I'm not working for anybody else. I'm working for my client. And so I learned early on that if I'm going to help people, I'm going to have to rely upon my instincts. I'm going to have to rely upon the training that I do, and then move forward helping people.
No, that's part of the development of being an attorney. And sometimes the best lessons you learn are lessons that you learn in defeat, but they always stick with you. And I had early on in my career, I had a criminal case where there was an allegation of abuse, and it came from a minor child, and they called this girl as a witness, and I kind of didn't go after her with both barrels, as they say, just because I didn't want to look like I was beating up on a younger girl. And the jury came back with a guilty verdict against my guy. And I talked to the jurors afterwards, and their response to me was, "Well, if you're expecting us, the jury, to call her a liar, why can't you bring yourself to do that?" And that was a lesson that always stuck with me. And recently we had a jury trial with one of our associate attorneys was sitting second chair. We had the same situation come up, and she was a little worried about the optics of going after the victim, the alleged victim, too hard. And again, just the experience you tuck away in your back pocket from learning these hard lessons sometimes. I said, no, we've got to really go after her. And that's exactly what we did. And we were able to get a not guilty verdict.
I know exactly what trial you're talking about. And I didn't know about your first one. And I love that story, Jeff, because I know what happened the second one after the jury came up to you and they thanked you.
Right.
And they thanked you and Darmisha for putting her on the stand and recalling her.
Right.
Recalling her to get that testimony out.
Well, because I came to a little argument with my co-counsel, but I kind of had to pull rank on her. I said, no, we've got to recall her and go after her. So after we were done, I said, let's go talk to the jurors, because that's always a good lesson whenever you do a trial. Whether you win or lose, you can always gain enormous insight. And so I asked the jurors specifically, I said, what did you guys think? Did you think I was going after the victim a little too hard? Did it look unfair? Did it look like I was beating her up? And one of the jurors said, heck no, we thought you should have gone after her harder.
There you go. I didn't tell you the rest of my story, Jeff. That's such a great story. I know with mine, that same attorney over the years has tried to convince me not to go to trial. I've never lost a jury trial to that attorney after. Tried 8 times with her. I've never lost a jury trial. But the crazy thing is, when that attorney comes up to me now and says, and this attorney, she knows I'm going to take her to trial. She knows we're going to go. I've never stopped. She'll come up and do the same thing, and I'll look at her and I'll say, why don't you give me this, and this, and we won't go to trial. We don't have to go to trial. You just have to give me everything I want.
Exactly.
No, we're not going to do it. I said, so you're choosing to go to a jury trial then.
That's right, 100%.
I mean, this is your choice, not mine. And that's something I learned, is that I allowed my choice to be taken from me. Well, Kate, you've got the bar exam next on your list in 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the bar exam. What is that?
The bar exam is an exam that every hopeful attorney needs to take before they can practice where they want to go.
What do you mean needs to take?
It's a requirement to receive a license to be allowed to practice in any area. That has been revolutionized recently. It used to be that every state had its own bar exam, and that should be changing over the next couple of years. There's something called the Next Gen Bar, and if you take it in one state, it's going to apply to most of them.
So, what type of courses of study or what's being tested on that for that test?
Well, it tests you on a lot of core curriculum for the first part. There's going to be evidence, criminal procedure, lots of different course materials that you'd expect to be on the bar.
So what are you doing to prepare yourself for that?
The big thing is just taking those classes early now so that I can refresh myself on them later when I graduate from law school. I'll be taking wills and estates this next semester in order to prepare for that. I've taken all of the civil procedure, contracts, torts, all of that already. So just moving forward, I just need to focus my class schedule on those courses and start to prepare and read those materials so I'll be ready to go.
Great. You'll never know as much law, I don't think, broadly as you do. You'll know more broadly, but very, very shallow than when you take the bar exam.
Right.
You know, now you'll get into your area of focus, whatever that turns out to be, and you'll dive very deep into that. And a lot of the areas of law you'll remember from the bar exam, but quite frankly, after 30 years, the law's probably changed anyway on all that.
Exactly.
On a lot of those things. Well, that leads us then back to kind of where we were all headed, which is from the client's experience, from a client's perspective. We've seen a young lawyer and older lawyers. When a client is thinking about hiring an attorney, what should they look for? Let's start with you, Kate.
Well, what I think they look for, just from my experience, is someone who can calm them down and give them a sense of confidence and assurity. Our clients come in and they don't know anything about the law that they haven't gotten from ChatGPT. So what they need is someone to sit them down, tell them, we can solve your problem, and they need to feel that.
ChatGPT, interesting you say that, is the bane of my existence.
It's become that.
It has.
Yeah.
So often I will have clients come in. It just happened this past Friday with me or Thursday, I had the client come in and ChatGPT had given him part of the answer, but not the whole thing.
Right.
And it was on a termination case and had told him, well, I'm allowed to terminate it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so I want to do it. And I had to go through the whole analysis and let them see everything, how best interest applies, and had to tell them, look, I'm sorry ChatGPT gave you bad advice.
Exactly.
I'm giving you 30,000 cases of experience to go along with what I'm telling you.
And also, just because a judge can do something doesn't mean a judge is going to do something. So you have to know your judge as well as knowing the law.
Which is why you hire a lawyer. One, because we know the law, but two, because we know the judges.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right? I think when a client comes in, what they're looking for is someone that can tell them, honestly speaking, can look at them and not sugarcoat anything.
Right.
I always try to I don't want to give them the worst case scenario. I want to tell them exactly what I believe is going to happen in their case and why I believe it. Now, I'm going to tell them I could be wrong, but I don't think I will be. And so this is what I fully think you can expect in your case. And knowing that that's your expectation, here's where we can go. And I talk to them about that. And if their expectation, or if they want something more than that, then I can strategize with them. I said, well, maybe we can do this and this. Not going to make any guarantees, but I think that's your best course based on what you want. So when they come in, I really try to help my clients see that I want them to make the most informed decision they can make.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
I don't want them there's so many times, Jeff, clients can come into the office and I can tell them, yep, we can do it. Let's go and do it. Knowing full well we're going to lose the case.
Right.
And knowing full well at the end, I can blame it on the judge.
Right.
And say, well, that judge just didn't understand the law. I'm sorry. You can appeal if you'd like to. It's going to cost you $40,000. You're going to have to go hire an appellate lawyer.
Right. But we're not doing them any
favors.
favors.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
That's not what we're there for. Kate, one of the things at our firm that we live by are our core values, right? We do the right thing simply because it's right and for no other reason. We intentionally extend good to others. We go above and beyond for the benefit of the team. I'm missing one. And we expect
demand excellence.
We demand excellence. I was going to say expect perfection, but that's not what it is. Demand excellence. By living those four core values and by expecting attorneys at our firm to live those values, I believe we can give a client experience to clients that they can't get anywhere else.
Right. I agree entirely. And it's very easy to tell somebody what they want to hear. And I think that's good advice for somebody that's looking for an attorney, is if you have an attorney that's just automatically telling you everything's going to be all right, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Although sometimes there are scenarios where that is indeed the case. But I agree with you. I think what clients are looking for is A, guidance, and B, somebody that has been in that situation before and can formulate a plan to move the client forward, move their families forward, even if there's no absolute guarantee that the outcome is going to be exactly what they want. At least we have a plan as to how to move in that direction and a plan to get there.
And I've often told clients that they'll come in and they have unrealistic wants.
Right.
And I'll tell them, look, it's not realistic what you're asking for. What you're asking for is just not going to happen. And those are the clients who, when the case is done, a lot of times will come up and thank me and said, hey, look, I knew what I was getting into. You were right. This is exactly what I knew was going to happen. I'm still disappointed, but I'm not upset with your firm. You guys, I can tell, did everything you could do, and you did let me know up front. That always makes me feel good. I've had other clients where even when I've given them the expectation and we have fallen short on those, but the judge for some reason has gone less, who have still thanked me and said, hey, you put up the fight.
Right.
And that's all they expect. Can we get in there, make the right arguments, do those type of things? Well, Kate, we don't have that much time left, so why don't you take the last word? Going forward, the areas of law that you've done, what did you like? What areas have you liked at our firm that you've had in your internship?
I've honestly really enjoyed criminal law. I love family law too. I think that's really important. But criminal law, I think, is a place where I can see myself operating. I think that it's an amazing opportunity to do everything in our power to make sure that justice is really done. Because these people, when they go in on the worst days of their life, they can pretty much lose out on the rest of their lives based on some of those poor decisions that they've made. And we give them an honest shot at having another chance.
I agree. And the Constitution of the United States, when you look at the Bill of Rights and those amendments, they're all designed for criminal cases.
Yep.
Your right to remain silent, your right to confront witnesses, your
right to trial by jury, right to have an attorney.
All that is
right against search and seizures.
Yeah, that's all criminal cases. And I agree with you. Criminal law is really a fun area. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. And let me get to my what I have to say. So first, let's give just a thank you, Kate. We've enjoyed having you work with the firm. Thank you for joining us the last hour. You've given a lot of insight.
Thank you for the invitation.
And thanks for being honest about what it looks like to be an attorney. If you're in Texas and you're dealing with something right now and you're not sure what your options are, give us a call. I'm Brett Pritchard.
And I'm Jeff Linick, and this has been Texas Law Unlocked.